Aaron Cohen, former member of the Israel Special Operations Counter-Terrorist Unit. Aaron, as we bring you in, some news to report. According to Admiral Daniel Hagari, no casualties in this ballistic missile attack. The airspace has been reopened. People have been let out of the shelters that they took refuge in. Your assessment of where we are on this night in Israel?
Well, John, what you're seeing right now is the direct result of one of the finest special counter-terror operations in the world, directed at Hezbollah. Israel, after 11, 12 days, completely dismantled the senior leadership of that organization. And I'll tell you, in the Middle East, there's a lot of big egos, a lot of big posturing. But Israel has a multi-layered defense system, as Reserve Colonel Miri just said. The Iron Dome, David Sling, an incredible infrastructure of bomb shelters throughout the country. It's mandatory as part of the zoning. But Israel is actively engaged in operations in southern Lebanon right now. Iran is doing the exact same thing that happened a couple of months ago, which is they're firing a barrage of ballistic missiles. But the fact is there wasn't a nuclear missile that was fired from Iran, which leads me to believe that Israel is doing everything it can right now to decide whether or not they want to attack that Iranian nuclear facility in Tormuz. And there's other operational plans that Israel's eyeing very closely right now in Iran, including Shah Island, which is where all of that oil gets refined. So right now, that little tit for tat, Israel is deciding whether or not, at this point, now that everything's going to start getting quiet, whether they're going to launch another counter-strike, or if this is just Iran spitting out that last, like we say in Arabic, kalban, that bark. Is this their last bark, or is it time for Israel to escalate and then start penetrating into Iran? And I think Iran has been looking for and going to quiet down. So it's going to be interesting to see where that goes. I think we're going to see some potential quiet special operations retaliatory activity after this. But really the focus is going to be on Hezbollah. They're the immediate threat. Although missiles are landing in Israel, John, no deaths reported. Israel's got the security abilities to be able to cover and protect the Israeli people. And so I think this is Iran looking for their out, if I had to guess, John. Trying to keep that posture and look tough at the same time.
All right, so we are getting some updates, sir. Thank you very much for joining us. I'll ask you where you do see this going next based on what I can tell you is happening right now. Lebanon's Minister of Transport says airspace will temporarily be closed to air traffic. That's going to be another 2 hours. Israel's reopened its airspace. Takeoffs and landings to resume in the coming hour, according to the airport authority. The Jordan army is issuing a statement saying its forces in a state of readiness at this hour to confront any attempts that threaten kingdom's security. This is also a statement from an Israeli military spokesperson saying very few injuries. There are very few injuries after this Iranian missile strike, and that the public can now exit their bomb shelters. Also appears that we're getting a statement from the Israeli military that the missile attack from Iran was over and people could leave air raid shelters. In that statement, it reads, following the situational assessment, it was decided that it is now permitted to leave protected spaces in all areas across the country. Based on all of that, what do you see the coming hours looking like here as we do look at nearly the 9 o'clock hour there in Jerusalem?
Well, guys, here's what I think. I think that the fact that the IDF and the Israeli security authorities have decided to open up the airspace in the next coming hours, residents are now allowed to leave their houses, and they're about to get on with business, tells me that this was a limited strike. It tells me that this was a posturing attack, very similar to what Iran did a couple of months ago. And I think the real operational focus is going to continue to be Hezbollah, who's strategically aligned along that southern border in Lebanon, which poses an imminent threat to Israel. And what I mean by that is Hezbollah has fired up to 10,000 rockets over the last 11 months at Israel. Israeli special operations forces have entered southern Lebanon. And I think the continued dismantling are going to be the focus. Israel did find out about imminent plans through their intelligence apparatus that Hezbollah was planning to infiltrate the northern portion of Israel into the Galilee region for the purpose of creating another October 7th style attack. Those are very, very real. And so Israel is focused on the imminent threat. I believe this was limited. Israelis allowed to leave their house right now. It tells me that this wave of missile attacks is over. And this tells me that there are conversations that are happening with Iranian intelligence officials, U.S. intelligence officials, and quietly with Israeli Mossad intelligence officials relaying that information. This is just that bark of the Middle East. Iran trying to look tough. But Hezbollah, now that Nasrallah has been killed with the 10,000 plus rockets that were fired into Israel, that is the focus of the Israel defense apparatus. And Israel will continue to dismantle that infrastructure. And Iran, I believe, is smart enough to understand that anything past what we just saw in the last couple of hours here will result in very aggressive, let me say this, preemptive strike operations targeted at Iran, Iran's military infrastructure, their oil refinery system. Israel, the soul of her operational capability, lies in that aggression. And I believe Iran launched those missiles because they're prepared to lay down. They do not want to be unalived, just like the entire leadership of Hezbollah and Hamas were unalived. Systematically, nobody is better at killing terrorists than Israel, and Iran knows that.
Well, certainly what they've done in Lebanon is like that's one for the textbooks, I guess,
That's
going
right, John.
forward. Yeah.